Last screw up, I promise.
Okay.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Ah, good. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Good to see all of you. Hello, Sana. Hello, Heath. Hello, Erwin. Hello, Joni. Hello, Betty. Hello, Michelle. Marlene, Magdalena, Eileen, Rula, Laura.
You're gonna have to. Hang on, I got it.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right. So I'm going to keep you guys all muted. So when it gets to where Geschichte will say at some point, do you guys have any questions? And at that point, if you have a question, just unmute yourself, okay? All right. So the way, some of you are new to this, the way that we begin these webinars is I'm going to sing Geschichte's song. Geschichte is the angelic realm that I met when I had a near-death experience when I was 19 years old. And they taught me a song that connects me to them. And after I do that, then Geschichte will be the one speaking to you guys on the art of relationships, okay? I never know what's going to be said, and I'm looking forward to it, as you guys are. So while I sing, just, hi Jeremy. When I sing, just close your eyes and relax, and yeah, you can sing with me. We're still moving in, so that's why you see empty bookshelf behind me. How do I mute everyone?
Go to chat.
Okay.
Just went to the wrong thing. Just needs to go away.
Okay. And then during it, if I'm giving you like a yes or a no question, like just do thumbs up for yes, thumbs down for no. So right now, can everyone hear me? Okay,
You don't
good.
want to take that off your screen. It's just you.
Om Sei Safanata. Om Sei Safanata. Ooh, ooh, hey. Save men come, Seiken. Save men come, Seiken. Ooh, save no. Ooh, forsake
forsaken. For no day. For no day. How comforting. He comforting. Ah, comforting. He comforting. Ah, for no day. For no day. Home for you. So tien que no. Home for you. Son tien que no. Nyam 48. Nyam 48. Oh, for you. Son tien que no.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening to all of you. Nice to see all of you. So because Angel forgot to say this part, this is being recorded, and this will be placed on the internet on her YouTube channel. So if you are not okay with that, you might not want to stay on. You might want to watch it later. If you are okay with that, welcome.
They could also just block out their visuals and just only be on audio.
Yeah, you can also just be on audio. It's wonderful to see all of you. So today's topic is the art of relationships. And really, is there a better topic? In our opinion, there's not a better topic, not in the entire world. And this is why. Every single thing in your life, even if it's an inanimate object, is a relationship that you have to it. And everything that exists within your reality is based upon your relationship with it. Okay? That means that as you go about your life, the main thing that you need to be looking at is the way you feel about everything else, okay? So what we notice is that humans are very caught up in what other people are doing to them, or what your government is doing to you, or etc., what your job is doing to you. And while that is important, because it does play into the dynamic, which is very important, the most important is that you have successfully analyzed your relationship with something else. So if there is something in your life that you're unhappy with, while you do need to analyze what that entity or person is doing with you, treating you, more importantly, you need to know how you feel about it, okay, or them. And we're going to start this from the most basic ground rule of relationships. And you can apply this to anything, anything. When you begin a relationship with something, the basic and most important question to ask yourself is, do I respect this? Do I respect her? Do I respect him? Do I respect this job? And really feel the honesty of your answer. If your answer is no, you need to think twice about entering that relationship. Now, regarding a relationship that already exists, go ahead and think about a relationship in your life that you're unhappy with and ask yourself, do I respect this person or do I respect this job? And you'll start to understand your part of a dysfunctional dynamic, okay? If you're being honest. So the reason that we say that respect is the foundation of all relationships, and the reason we're not saying that love is the foundation of all relationships, is because for the most part, humans are extremely confused on what the word love means. So there are people all over the world in this webinar, and for those of you who are bilingual, we want to hear, or more than bilingual, we want to hear from you for a second. And we want to know the word love in English. Is it different? Does it feel different when used than the word love in your language? And in your birth language, is there deeper meanings for the word love than what you have learned in English? We just want to hear. Sana, can you?
Yes, in my own language, which is Dutch, the direct translation is liefde. And I think it kind of also derives a little bit, if you would translate it directly from sweetness, kind of being kind. Kindness is more better. So I think in Dutch culture, to love something is to be kind towards it. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. And Jeremy, why don't you tune in too?
Strangely, hey Angel. My language is English and it's just love Angel from where I come from. However, there are two other words which comes from India, which is one is from the language Tamil, and love in Tamil means kadal. And I'm not very sure about how I can probably compare it with the English word love, but kadal in Tamil, which comes from the South Indian states, it is a very deep perspective that goes within. Okay, and the other probably, because there's so many languages in India, and I'm just familiar with these two languages, which is Tamil, English, and Malayalam. And there's another word in Malayalam which means prema. Prema, right? And again, I'm not very exactly sure about the definition, but prema again has to revolve around the heart and the heartstrings. So, but I speak English. That was my birth language. But for me, apart from English, these are the two other languages that made sense for me.
Thank you, Jeremy.
All right, Angel.
Anybody else want to come in?
Marlene speaks German.
What about you, Marlene? You wanna join in on that?
In Germany, it's similar to Dutch. We have a similar meaning. I mean, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. And I feel like the most important part, though, is that we don't use the word hardly ever.
Interesting.
Like we only use it when we truly feel it and mean it. Yeah. So when we want to say that we like somebody, we literally say we like you. I like you. I don't say I love you. That's it.
Thank you, Mary. So that was good for everyone who only speaks English to hear, because in English, the word love is used for all kinds of things, isn't it? I love your hair. I love your clothes. I love your car. I love your voice. I love you while I'm punching you in the face. And so as a child, especially in this culture, the word love is very confusing, and it gets more confusing as you get older because it goes along with abuse as well. But it is very rare that someone is in an abusive relationship and the person is constantly going, I respect you, and hitting you in the face. So there's a lot less confusion with the word respect. And of course, love does include respect. And if respect is not in love, then it's not love. Because love is a very full word. Probably the fullest concept is love, which is why it's confusing. And so with what Sana said with kindness, what we've noticed is that even in the understanding of kindness, it gets confused. So we're not going to name names, but we'll speak about something from Angel's life where someone says to her, you need to be kind to this person. And this is someone that Angel is always kind to, but Angel's understanding of kindness and this other person's understanding of kindness is very different. So this other person's understanding of kindness means that no matter what, even if there is a shining dysfunction in your face, you don't point it out. Angel's understanding of kindness is no matter what, you are honest. You don't have to be cruel when you're honest, but you must be honest. So those are two very different understandings of kind, aren't they? Two very different understandings of love. But if you think about respect in this terminology, is it respectful to lie to someone? No, it's not. Is it respectful to lie to someone because the lie will help them feel more comfortable in their dysfunction? No, that's not kind. That's not kind, because what happens? Fast forward that behavior. What happens? Resentment happens. Compounded dysfunction happens. And the person who really needed to be informed about the dysfunction so that they could start to correct it has now gone down a much further path of dysfunction, which will make it harder for them to correct it. So when you fast forward something into the future, it is easier to see if this continues in this way, was this kind or was it not kind? Do you all understand this concept? So we would say that the second most important thing in all relationships is honesty. Number one, respect. Number two, honesty. All right? Because the lack of honesty contributes to the majority of dysfunctions that we see occurring. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't want to be honest because if I'm honest with that person, it's going to hurt their feelings. Yes, has everyone felt this before? If I'm honest, then it's going to hurt their feelings. They're not going to be able to handle it. Well, carry that out into the future, like what we just said. If you are dishonest with someone over and over and over again to save them from hurting their feelings, are you helping them become aware of a dysfunction? Or are you helping them believe that the dysfunction is perfectly okay? Obviously, the answer is you're helping them believe that the dysfunction is perfectly okay. So then what happens to the person who hasn't been being honest? That person becomes resentful and has frustration that builds up over a period of time until they become so angry that they can't keep it in anymore. And then what happens? And now you've got something that's hard to repair, because the person who wasn't receiving the honesty thinks, well, that came out of nowhere. I had no idea you felt that way. And the other person is like, I've felt that way for years. And so then the other person feels like, well, you've felt that way for years and you've never told me. Now I feel betrayed. Now I feel like the whole thing's been fake. Because that means every time you've been interacting with me, you've been thinking that, but you've never said it. And you've acted like it's okay. So now I feel betrayed. And so it's going to backfire on the person who wasn't honest in the first place. You see? So although being honest in the moment is uncomfortable, often uncomfortable, it is by far the best thing to do. Because at least everyone in your life can choose at that point whether they want to be in it or not, based on the honesty you've shared. Right? And isn't that the kind thing to do? To allow somebody else to choose whether or not they want you, based on how you truly feel. So when you start really getting into this dynamic, you can start to see a lot of things, can't you? You can start to see where perhaps you've been afraid. You've been afraid of what that person's response will be. And if you're afraid about someone's response, and that fear is dictating your ability to interact with them on an honest level, then you've got a serious dysfunction going on. That's not going to play out well, okay? So while we're telling you what we consider to be the most important components of any relationship, we're also explaining to you the common dysfunctions that occur. Yeah? So how do you make sure that somebody else is feeling loved by you? Because that's one of the fears that's occurring when someone says, well, I don't want to be honest because I'm afraid that I'm going to hurt their feelings. That's basically saying, I'm really afraid that they're going to interpret this as though I don't love them. But when you begin a relationship and someone understands that you are who you are and you're going to be honest and frank while being loving and present, they get a more clear message, okay? So one of the best things you can do for someone else to feel loved by you is be present with them. When we watch humankind, we consider that this is probably one of the things that's causing you guys the most heartache in life, is the inability to be present with one another. And for some reason, the more you care about someone, the less presence there often is. So we notice that it's very common for people to have more presence at their job because they want to improve their wealth than it is to be present at home with their children or with their spouse or whomever. And this comes from the desire to have more wealth then more connection. And the thing is that those two things don't have to be separate from one another. You guys can have wealth and you can have connection. But if you're not practicing your ability to be present with those that you care about, then you're going to practice it in other places and it's going to exhaust you, because presence is basically a certain type of invisible muscle. And it takes energy to be present. It takes a specific type of energy to be present. And so when you're using up your energy in other areas, then you feel like you have no presence left for those that you care about. And any of you who have children, if you think back on it or you think about it right now, if you have little ones, when they were little, the one thing they always wanted from you was your presence. And if you weren't giving your presence, it's the one thing that upset them more than anything. And here's the thing, guys, that doesn't change. That doesn't change. You do not grow into an adult and desire presence any less. You just become used to people not being present with you. And what is the message that is sent to each one of you when someone is not present with you? Does it make you feel loved? It makes you feel ignored. It makes you feel ignored. It makes you feel like you're not important. But when someone is present with you, when someone is deeply listening to you, it can heal all kinds of things, can't it? It can make you feel like the most important person in the world. It can make you feel so nurtured and healed. Just having someone deeply listen to you. So we would say that the very first thing, if you want others to feel loved by you, be present with them. No matter if you think that what they're saying is stupid, it doesn't matter. Practice being present. Practice less of your response, more of your listening. Okay? Because in your practice of presence, you teach others about presence. And if the entire world could be more present with one another, out of respect for each other, just because you are a human being, you deserve my presence. If we're interacting, you deserve my presence. The end. Even if I hate your guts, you deserve my presence while we're interacting. And I will be honest with you about whatever I hear you say. Whatever I deeply hear you say, I will be very present and I will be very honest with you in my response. This is still the way to interact with someone that you hate. Isn't that interesting? And can you see that more solutions would occur in this way of behavior? Because if two people can practice presence, even if those two people don't like each other, if they can truly practice presence and deeply listen to what the other one is saying, then they will be able to find solution. And do you know what occurs when a solution happens between two people that don't like each other? Their energies start to move apart from each other. They start to untangle. So this is really a motivating topic, because the last thing you guys want when you don't like someone is to be entangled with them. But the first thing that happens when you don't like someone is you are entangled with them. Because the entanglement itself is teaching you something. It's teaching you something. And the only way that you're going to find out what it is to be present with it. The more you try to avoid it, the more it will chase you. So even in the case of hatred, presence is still the answer. Isn't that interesting? So how do we feel loved by others? This is another thing that we notice, that many humans have trouble actually receiving love from others. So because the word love, as we've already discussed, is full of all kinds of meanings, let's go with a more simple word. Do I feel respected by you? Can I receive your respect? Now, if you start to feel through that one, you're going to find out some things. Hold a person in your mind, hold your interactions in your mind, and ask, do I feel respected by you? And now recall, has that person often said to you, I love you? And do you feel loved by that person? So this is very telling, okay? If you can think about someone in your mind that you do not feel respected by, and that person has said, I love you, and you don't feel loved by them, you will see that not feeling respected by them precedes not feeling loved by them. And that's the main reason why when someone that you don't feel respected by says, I love you, it pisses you off. Don't say that to me. You don't act like that. You don't act like you love me. Don't say that. All right? So the reason we want you guys to start thinking about it this way is because we feel that you can accept respect with a lot of ease. Each one of you, deep in your heart, at the core of your being, knows that you are meant to be respected. You just know it. You're born into this world knowing it. So when you are disrespected, you do not like it. You do not want to put up with it on any level. So it's a very clear understanding about what you are or are not receiving from someone. And it's not convoluted. So it is easy to receive respect if there is any to be receiving. Okay? But at the same time that you're thinking about that, ask yourself, what is self-respect? What does it mean to respect myself? And this is why that topic is important. When you're speaking of emotions or frequencies, which is what we're discussing here, and respect and love and those types of things, the more you train yourself into the ability to receive these things from yourself, the easier it is for you to recognize whether or not you're receiving it from others. Now, we're not saying that if you don't respect yourself, you can't receive respect from others. We're not saying that because it's actually not really true. Because there are so many layers to that, that a blanket statement like that can't even be accurate. However, if you know what respect really feels like because you offer it to yourself, then it is much easier for you to determine and decipher when someone is offering it to you and when someone isn't. Because, like we said, it's one of those invisible muscles. And part of the reason relationships become so dysfunctional is because you guys aren't consciously practicing these types of emotions with yourself. Are you practicing honesty with yourself? Are you practicing respect with yourself? Are you practicing kindness with yourself? Are you practicing love with yourself? And how are you practicing those things with yourself? Often we will ask our students about this type of thing. And in the beginning, when we first start asking these type of questions, the answers will be quite shallow. Meaning, to show love and kindness to myself, I'm going to give myself a pedicure. Okay, that's great, but it's very shallow. Because when we talk about respect, one of the most basic ways you can respect yourself is to be very honest with yourself. One of the most basic ways you can respect yourself is to be very committed to your internal work, your ability to feel your own emotions, your ability to be present with yourself while you're feeling your emotions. Meaning that if you're someone who practices avoidance a lot, then it's going to be even harder for you to decipher whether or not you are feeling these concepts from someone else. Because you're not in the practice of knowing what these concepts feel like. And here's the thing, guys. Your entire human life is an emotional journey. First and foremost, it is an emotional journey. When you are lying on your deathbed, the main thing that courses through you is your memory of emotions throughout your life. Yes, you might have pictures and the memories might be that sort of visual experience, but what will go along with the visual experience is the feeling experience. And if you deeply think about that, if you think about what is my life, what has my life been, you'll notice that it's been a series of emotional adventures. All right? So to avoid emotion is to avoid your entire life. That's a big statement. And to avoid emotion is the number one way to get yourself completely out of alignment with everything you want in your life. Okay? Because you can't make conscious decisions about what you want to create in your life, what you want to take part in, through avoidance. And why is that? Because in avoidance, you don't know anything. And avoidance is like standing in the middle of a dark room, having no idea where anything is, and acting like the room is full of light. And that's one of the plagues of relationships, is the avoidance factor. And that is why we would say that respect, presence, honesty, we would say those are the biggest three foundational aspects of any relationship. And that you can absolutely apply every single one of those to anything in your life. And if you apply it to anything and everything in your life will absolutely improve. There is no way for it not to improve if you can really start engaging in these three concepts. So when we're speaking about receiving these things from others, and that it will improve your ability to receive if you're practicing it with yourself, we want to know if you guys have any questions about that. Do any of you have questions about that? We're going to go ahead and go deeper into it. Liliana, you do? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you can, or we'll unmute you. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. About being present, we are living in a technology world right now that being present is like the least that you can see. Everybody is like hooked up with the computer, with the iPhones, like even children, you know, they're not present with each other. They're probably together, but they're playing different games. You know, it's a very difficult time now for somebody to really be present. I
That's
don't know
true.
if you agree with me.
Well, we do, because the world is full of distractions,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's really important to be practicing it.
Yeah.
And when you see children practicing lack of presence, it's because they've learned it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the way that this world starts to change is by you guys teaching your kids something different.
Mm-hmm.
So distraction is the main way to not be present.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need a phone or a computer to distract yourself. People do it all, have been doing it since the beginning of time. It's easy to do. You can do blame. Blame is a sort of distraction. Being upset and blaming someone else is a perfect way to not go within and figure out what's going on with you.
That's true.
That's still distraction. So ultimately, one has to really figure out how much time am I spending distracting myself. And basically, if I am not really being present with my own emotions, no matter how uncomfortable they are, if I'm not being the parent to myself in this way, then I am distracting myself in some way. I am practicing avoidance in some way.
Yep.
And if there is a loop going on of blame, 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 that's also an avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that the other person didn't take part in something or doesn't have something that they need to be accountable for as well. In almost all cases, that is true. The other person does need to be accountable for something as well.
Yeah.
But the fact is that in any relationship, you can't control the other person.
Right.
The only thing you have any control over is your inner world.
Okay.
So it's important to be very present with your inner world and very honest about what's going on in there. So did you have a question further than that, Liliana?
No, it's just like, that's what I notice now, and everybody else does, that there is less being present. I don't know, it's like people in general, I'm seeing in general, people that I know and people that I don't know, is like there is not that chat that you talk to somebody and you listen to what the other person is telling you. It's not that common like it used to be. And it's sad, because it's like avoiding being in contact with people, like you're saying. Avoidance is also not being present.
Yeah. So those of you that do care about it can start practicing it even more.
Yeah.
Because of course, this does need to take place for the world to start to change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We muted you again, Liliana. So if you want to talk again, just raise your hand. Does anyone else? Eileen, you have a question?
Can you hear me?
We can.
I come from such an old school of being taught spiritual principles that as you're talking about being present with another person, the thing that came up for me is that I don't understand where the understanding is of taking on someone's karma that doesn't belong to me, and where my self-care and self-responsibility is. I was taught that if I engaged and entangled with someone, I was taking on their karma.
What does that mean if you engaged? What do you mean by that?
That's what I've been trying to figure out myself. It's like, by being honest, I think I feel like if I'm honest, I am giving them my personal input, which may not be appropriate for them. And I could influence them or take them in a direction where they wouldn't have gone on their own. And if that happens, I'm now responsible and take on their karma. Does that sound clear? That's what is in my head as a confusion.
So when you say be honest with someone in this way, are you saying that you're kind of telling them something that you see in their future? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. I think that I have been very quiet in my life and not, I think I have restricted myself from speaking up because I thought that whether I predict something in the future or whether I give them my personal guidelines, I thought I was interfering with their own process somehow. So I have got this confused in my head.
Okay. Well, there is such a thing as giving someone advice when they don't want it, of course. And yeah, that's something to be sensitive to. But we're speaking more in terms of when you have a difficulty in a relationship with someone and you have the ability to help iron out the difficulty by being honest about what's occurring, you're not going to interfere with their processes, so to speak, because often what's happening is somebody else is in complete avoidance and not paying attention to their behavior. And so they're in the dark about what's occurring. And so often you guys need each other to point things out so that you can look at yourselves more honestly. Now, what happens is that you guys are so not used to doing that you're immediately offended by it.
Right.
When there's something that's wrong with one of you, or that's how you take it, wrong with one of you, instead of going, oh, okay, yeah, that's definitely something for me to correct, thank you. You'll go, oh, I can't believe that you even think.
Yeah.
And so basically, if you guys can kind of make an agreement with each other when you go into relationships, or even if you're in the middle of a relationship, it's a good conversation to have, to go, I think that we're not being honest enough with each other. I think it would be a good idea for us to be just more forthcoming about some of the things that are occurring, because I think that we can improve our relationship faster that way. And so if you need to say something to me, please feel free to say it. And even if it offends me, I will work through it. And I ask you the same thing. Please try not to be offended when I talk to you about something that can change to make our relationship better. And two people who truly care about each other, two people who really want to expand the joy between them, will be open to this. Because to not do this keeps you either in stagnation or it moves you in the opposite direction toward resentment. Until eventually there's a canyon between you. So regarding taking on someone else's karma, that's a great topic to get into, but we're going to kind of lay out a blanket statement about that. For the most part, you cannot take on somebody else's karma, okay? You can involve yourself in their field. You can involve yourself in dynamics with them which will affect you, okay? Just like if you get into a car with a bunch of bank robbers and they go rob a bank and you're still sitting in the car and then police pull up, you're going to get arrested too. You see the comparison? But as far as just sucking up somebody else's karma and that then becoming yours, that does not occur, because the big picture, the universe, however you want to say that, is much more intelligent than that. The big picture knows what's yours and what's somebody else's.
Okay.
All right. Now, where it gets tricky, though, is when you start taking responsibility for somebody else, you inflict their karma on yourself. Okay?
How would I take on responsibility that creates that, absorbing that karma?
Well, let's give an extreme example, okay? Let's say that you're in a relationship with someone and that person killed someone and you know about it, okay? And because you know about it and you haven't told the police or you haven't done something to get it off of you, you feel like you're somehow sharing in something that feels dirty to you. And by staying in a relationship with that person, and by not taking steps to free yourself from that dynamic, and not taking steps to free yourself from the knowledge that you have, you are keeping yourself entangled within that dynamic. And thus you will feel the karma of that individual and probably even be affected by it. But the minute you get it off of you and do what you need to do, go to the police, whatever, I know there's been a murder, blah, 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 and untangle yourself from that relationship, then you are free of that energy. All of that goes back to the person. So it's only in your ability and willingness to share it that you will experience it. And this goes back to why we say that it's very important to be honest.
Right. Yeah, I see that now.
Because if you're in that dynamic and you get really honest with yourself, you'll see, oh, I am actually completely entangling myself. And I don't have to. And that's why denial is so dangerous. Denial or avoidance, however you want to say it. It's a very dangerous space to be because you do end up entangling yourself with dynamics that aren't yours. All right? And because free will is the leader of all dynamics, you have to be the one to pull yourself out of that. Does that make sense to you?
It does. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? So we feel that we have given you guys a lot of information about the art of relationships, and that if you'll apply it, you will experience much greater success in all relationships. And when we say that being present and being honest and respectful with yourself is the foundation to all of it, we really mean that. And so we want you guys to start paying a lot of attention to the way that you feel about things and the way you think about things. And we want you to ask yourself if your behavior and the way you speak is in alignment with the true way that you feel. And if it's not in alignment with the true way that you feel, then we want you to start contemplating how you get those more into alignment. Okay? Because life is a flow of energy. And you are the one who dictates how well that energy flows. All right? That is not up to God or whatever else you want to call it. That is up to you. That is up to you, even within your egoic self. Figuring out how to get in alignment. And by alignment, we mean making sure that everything lines up accordingly. So being able to find the kinks in your own armor, so to speak. Being able to find the dishonesty kinks. Being able to find the avoidance kinks. And when you find those, go into them. Feel them with full awareness, no matter how uncomfortable they are. And get to know the truth for you, no matter how ugly it is. And accept it. Accept it first. Don't try to change it first. Just accept it first. Because once you accept something, when you deeply accept something with your heart, it starts to change. And when something starts to change out of acceptance, it starts to come into alignment. Okay? So that's the beginning of that. And we feel that that's enough for today. Are there any other questions? Did you all enjoy this? Do you enjoy this topic? Good. We will soon beginning another introductory course. We do a mentoring program. We take you through, once you come to the end of it, it's about 3 years. But we take you through a mentorship program with us where we really teach you how to behave and think in this world more like us. And it is a much bigger shift than you would imagine. But for the most part, you guys have been living an upside down life. Humans have been living an upside down life for quite some time. And we teach you how to turn it back right the other way, okay? So we're going to be beginning that soon. If you are interested in this mentorship program, please send Angel or Keith a note. We will be doing it online like this. The first part of it is just a 6-week program so that you can get a feel for it, because we're pretty easy in this setting where it's very general. But when you become our student, we really start teaching you how to get in there and unravel your shit. And as you unravel your shit, it feels pretty nasty and you'll go through a lot of emotions, but you do come out of it a completely different person when you study with us. And in addition to that, we teach you how to be a very effective healer. All right, so we have very much enjoyed this. Thank you all for tuning in, and send us a note if you want to study with us, okay? Bye, everyone. We love you all.